Good morning, guys. How you doing? This is a little bite-sized stream. You can tell because it's shorter than the rest, and there's no video camera because I've not even got up and got ready for work yet. I'm just sitting here, and I thought, you know what? It's been a couple of days since I spoke to you. Let's do a quick little recap because we had the debate between Sunak and Starmer the night before last. I managed to catch most of that. My plan has been, by the way, that I was actually going to download the video of the debate, edit together some bits and bobs from it because there was a few observations I had when I was watching it that I found quite funny. Um, so I may well do that after work today. But first of all, there seems to be this trend now when we have any kind of leaders debate where you've got to zoom the camera in on them standing next to the presenter and they look like cardboard cutouts or graphics or something. And then after a moment, you go, oh no, hang on, that's really them. They're just standing perfectly still. We had it between Sunak and Truss, and then we had it between Starmer and Sunak this time as well. Um, so yeah, watching it, there were only a few sort of very clear dividing lines between them, weren't there? Things like Starmer's opposition to the Rwanda policy and the fact that Sunak is obviously in favour. Things like whether or not we potentially leave the European Court of Human Rights. Starmer came out very much against that. Sunak said, I will always pride the I forget what phrase he used, the security of this country above all other things, or the strength of our borders, or whatever. But basically a way of saying, well, maybe it's on the cards, quite possibly. But other than that, by and large, it was just kind of a roster of the two of them ruling out all the taxes that they wouldn't be raising, and sort of, accusing the other ones of not being trustworthy with the country, as much as you could probably expect from this kind of thing. Hello in the chat, by the way, to Sir Richmond Awesome in Bed says, hello, Mr. Swiss, and Lee Hallam, who says, I thought they were commissioned waxworks. It certainly appeared so, didn't it? Now, one of the first questions I remember them having, there was a lady in the audience who I'm going to call Brenda. I want to say her name was Brenda. And she described her situation saying that she was having real trouble with energy bills, that she was having to batch cook things for the week on weekends because the situation was that dire. It really painted a very bad picture that could be somebody's situation here in the country. So I was looking out to see how the two of them responded to her and sort of how personable they appeared to be. And I recall that I think Starmer did a little bit better on the sort of, calling her by her name and trying to address her directly. But to be honest, both of them pretty quick kind of launched into their pre-prepared talking points. I thought there was a real avenue there that maybe one of them could have just said something like, "Oh, Brenda, I'm so sorry about your situation. It's such a stain on our country and how things are right now that it's been allowed that you're in this situation, and I I wish I could promise that I could wave a magic wand and improve everything all of a sudden, but I just can't. But look, these are what my priorities are. I hope that this and this will ultimately help to benefit you." And something along those lines. That really could have been a breakthrough moment if one of them had done that directly at Brenda. But instead, poor old Brenda was used as just a launching point where pretty quickly Sunak goes, "Well, Brenda, I've always looked after you. If you remember furlough, do you remember furlough? Do you remember that time I brought everyone around at the pub? Well, you remember furlough? I've had your back there. I've had your back with the energy price cap freeze. Do. And as I say, I think from what I remember, Starmer was slightly more personable, but not by any massive degree. He very quickly launched into his pre-prepared talking points as well. Speaking of pre-prepared talking points, did you have your bingo cards ready? Because we had son of a toolmaker at least twice, from what I remember. I know that we had Rishi Sunak mentioning that his dad was a GP, probably in reference to how much he cares about the NHS. Is this the 1950s? Do we care that much about what your father did? You go, you're dating a nice young lady and you go around a house for the first ever time for tea with the family, and they go, "Oh, and what does your father do?" "Oh, well, my father was a toolmaker. My father's a GP." And there was a lot of that. There was a lot of the pre-prepared talking points there. The big one that I think that Sunak pulled out, and to a fair effect, to be honest, was the idea that Labour is going to cost you £2,000 a year in tax rises. And Starmer was not Starmer was not quick enough off the mark and decisive enough to kind of poo-poo that. I think it took him a little while, and I can see that the Tories are going very hard on that now, in the time since the debate as well. So that really seems to be the angle that they're pushing on. Labour will cost you this much more in tax rises. Now I know that Labour has ruled out a hell of a lot of tax rises. Of course, you could always say, well, they're saying that now, but maybe they get into power and they do something different. But just on the basis of what the parties have said so far that they do, Labour have ruled out near enough as many tax rises as the Tories have. I think it's a select few that they've got to fund a few of their policies, things like taking away the tax-free status of private schools or the charitable status of private schools, levy on energy companies to help towards Great British Energy, non-dom status scrapping, that kind of stuff. But as far as sort of like your bread and butter stuff goes, I don't think they're planning to do anything that different from the Tories in terms of income tax, corporation tax, VAT, any of the rest of there. Lee Hallam in the chat says Starmer started off ahead with the first response, then he seemed unable to keep up with Rishi. So much for the great legal debater. Yeah, and it was a stronger start for Starmer, I thought. And then as time wore on, Rishi was just Rishi had a bit more energy in him. Now it was a bit of a desperate energy almost, because he was really sort of there was quite a few times that the moderator was having to say to him, Sunak, time to stop now, time to stop talking over Starmer. But obviously, as far as a power move goes, trying to get all those points in and talking over people and whatever, then I mean, it certainly didn't seem to harm him. We had a snap poll at the end of the debate, which placed 51% thinking that Sunak did better, 49% thinking that Starmer did better. So Sunak out in front by a hair, essentially a dead heat. Essentially, by and large, the public averaging it out, saying, I don't really know who did better. I saw a slight break. 85% of those who voted Tory in 2019 thought that Sunak did better. So I therefore assume that the opposite kind of ratio is true for Labour voters as well. So surprise, surprise, Tory types think that Sunak did better, and Labour types think that Starmer did better. And that probably filters through a bit. I probably would have had the same kind of biases going the other way. But I think at the time what I'd said was that I thought that Starmer was doing okay and that Sunak was doing badly. But to be fair, I remember when I actually said that out loud, that was pretty much the very early part of the debate. And the tone did seem to shift as it got later on. And I'm almost ashamed to admit this, but I found my attention starting to drift the longer that this went on. It was only a 1 hour event or so to have to pay attention to, but nonetheless, I remember I was really intently zeroing in on everything that they were saying for the first question or two, and then after that, it just ended up as a bit of a malaise that washed over me. But anyhow. Like I said, I will be downloading the debate just to edit together a few interesting little bits in terms of responses, or getting some bingo cards for what things were said most often, all the rest of it. The one thing I hadn't mentioned was Action Man Keir Starmer. He kept going on. There's a few times where he's talking about his history as being the head of the courts or whatever else, but he was talking about things from a very first person direct perspective, when he was saying things like, I've taken down international terrorist gangs before, and all this, that, and the other. And he did that kind of thing a couple of times, and I thought, all right then, Tom Cruise, So there was obviously some kind of a practice or a briefing with Starmer at some point where they said, Starmer, when you talk about your history, it's a little bit too boring and dusty, all this legalese of what you've done. Tell them that you've taken down the gangs yourself, Tell them that you're the man who's managed to defeat some of these great ills around the globe. Oh yeah, and smash the gangs. Smash the gangs was a phrase used several times. I think by both of them as well. Smash the gangs. We've got to smash the gangs. And it's odd how these particular phrases in political parlance just become really established really quickly. Not stop the boats, not stop the gangs, not end the people smuggling. No, smash the gangs. We've workshopped it, and we've decided that smash the gangs is the most action orientated phrase we can use. So that's what we're smash the gangs. Yeah. A couple more here. Claire King says the format was awful, basically a shouting match. Lee Hallam says if the public are skewed towards Starmer and the poll said 50-50, it's a definite Sunak win, I think. Pinhead Luke says morning Swiss early stream. Lee Hallam adds, I don't think him being in a meeting where it was authorized is Tom Cruise territory. What else I want to add as well on what Lee had said there about a Sunak win? I think that I don't think it's a Sunak win in the sense that this was the big moment he needed to start to move the dial with the debate going on in the country and all the rest of that. There wasn't a really big knockout blow kind of moment from my point of view. However, if you're looking at the fact that Sunak is so far behind Starmer right now, and the Tories are so far behind Labour, and they've had this appearance, and actually, if at the very least half the country think that Sunak did as well as Starmer did, then Starmer and Labour being out in front, they're the ones with things to lose at the moment. So if these debate appearances have him and Sunak on a equal footing, so to speak, then yeah, I suppose you can say, well, that was a plus for Sunak there. As opposed to before the debates had even taken place. But looking at the election at large, because Sunak versus Starmer is only one aspect of it, we have Reform, we have Farage. We spoke about the return of them a couple of days ago, and in that stream, I said, won't it be interesting to see when the first poll arrives that has Reform and the Tories on level pegging? Now, we're not there yet. It would have been a little bit much to assume that we'd be there only a few days into it. However, there was a YouGov poll released, I think, yesterday or the day before. It had Labour on 40%, the Conservatives on 19%, and Reform on 17%. Yes, 2 points difference between the Conservatives and Reform there. So it is pretty. It's believable, to be honest, that come the next YouGov poll, you only need the Tories down 1 point and Reform up 1 point more from where they are right now, and they are level pegging. So, a couple of days ago, I was talking about this. Oh, won't it be interesting? At what point in the campaign could we see this happening, even if it ends up being a bit of an outlier, thinking it might be a week or two down the line? Actually, it's beginning to appear that we could see that point of level pegging or crossover maybe within the next week or so. Admittedly, I suppose I should temper my excitement by saying this is just one poll by YouGov, blah blah blah. But I expect that when we see more polls coming in the next few days, then it's going to bear out that trend of Reform catching up to the Tories. That's going to be the case. Interestingly, we will have to look out for as well how much support it looks like Reform could be taking from Labour as well as just the Tories. Finally, before I go this morning, because as I said, it was just going to be a little bite-sized one. I saw an article on the BBC today saying that Ed Davey had been fined for speeding. Now, I think that this was this occasion of him speeding actually happened back in March or something like that. But my first thought I saw, because you've got to keep in mind the last 2 weeks, every time I've ever seen Ed Davey, it's been him falling in some water, or him going down a slide, or him riding a bike down a little hill, or him jumping on a bouncy castle, or whatever. So the moment I saw that, I just thought to myself, "Oh crikey, Ed Davey's starting to get a bit serious with these stunts now." He was out on the motorway speeding just for a bit of Lib Dem attention. Right, Pinhead Luke says Farage has completely turned over what was going to be a boring, uneventful election. I might even vote now. I think that this is going to be a really exciting election. Because although at the beginning there was a sense of predeterminism to it, we were all saying, well, Labour's going to win. It's not an exciting election in the sense of who's going to win. But with this extra Farage factor and Reform now, it really is starting to look at the difference between the Tories getting, a big defeat, a huge defeat, the worst defeat since insert name of election, name of year here, versus actually what if the Tories really do suffer a proper wipeout of the proportions that we've sort of heard being speculated on, because we seem to be moving in that direction, which is very interesting. It's going to make the next Parliament very interesting as well. Labour aren't out of the woods themselves. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Labour are, probably pretty well assured to be walking into Downing Street with a very nice majority, and they'll be able to get on with their programme for government. But Labour have their own interesting little elements as well. That could it well be that in an election or two's time, their main opposition ends up being a much more right-wing nationalist type party than they've ever faced in the Tories, whether or not that's a changed Tory party or a Reform party or whatever. You've also got the aspect that Labour's support amongst, the left-wing, progressive, young, university-educated types and some of their Muslim vote as well, that has been draining away recently. So although they've won over a lot of support from the sort of so-called middle ground when they've been chasing after these Tory votes and everything, and by far that has outnumbered the number of voters that they've lost. It is going to be interesting to see where Labour ends up ultimately with that particular demographic of their base, because completely anecdotally, this is anecdotal, I have 3 younger siblings. None of them are especially enthused about Keir Starmer. None of them, I think, are going to be voting Labour either. I'm possibly the only one of my 2 brothers and sister that had said, I'll be voting Starmer because I need to get the Tories out and everything. But even then, actually, in the past week or two, I've been flirting with the idea of not voting Labour, because I took a look at the seat that I live in and the fact that it's already a Labour seat, and I can pretty much make reasonable expectations about the swing away from the Tories and towards Labour, and I can go, yeah, you know what, I've got the wiggle room that I don't have to vote Labour if I don't want to. I don't know who I would vote for. I'm genuinely, I feel a little bit undecided at the moment. I'm leaning maybe Labour, maybe a spoilt ballot. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. A few more comments here. Lee Hallam says, but wait till someone asks Ed. Oh, no, hang on. Just shows how exciting Ed is. He is Tom Cruise, but just wait until someone asks Ed about the post office. Lee Hallam also adds, if Reform were Labour's rival, a lot of Northern safe seats would be the marginals. Yes, that's a very interesting point, and I do think you're right there. And Claire King says, vote Lib Dem. All right, then, guys, I've got to go. I need to go get ready for work shortly, but this was just a quick little recap on the debates and some of the latest happening with the polls. You will probably hear off me again sooner than later, especially as we're coming up to a weekend, but I might edit together some little interesting package from that debate a couple nights ago anyway. You guys take care. I'll catch you all later on. Bye-bye.